I want to thank you for joining us in this study of the book of Galatians. I am enjoying doing this for you, and I hope that you're enjoying receiving the truth of the book of Galatians. This book will change a person's life. It will help a person understand how to live a life of freedom. Freedom from the law, but also freedom from sin. Today we're in Galatians, the 5th chapter, verse number 5. And this is what the Apostle Paul wrote. For we, through the Spirit, by faith, are waiting for the hope of righteousness. For we. Now, do you notice the difference in the pronoun? Back in verse number 3 and verse number 2, the Apostle Paul was saying, I. And he was telling them, how to be free. And now all of a sudden he changes in verse number 5 and he says, for we. What's he doing? He's including all the believers in the region of Galatia. For we, through the Spirit. Now notice that the Apostle Paul emphasizes something here. He's saying, now what I'm going to tell you is something that didn't come by keeping the law. And what I'm going to tell you is not something that came because you remain bound to sin. What he's saying is this thing came through the Spirit. This is a work of the Spirit of God on the inside of you. Now, yesterday we talked about people who are constantly looking to self-righteousness and how they actually are separating themselves from grace. They are separating themselves from Christ. And now Paul is saying, now this is how this thing happens. He says it comes through the Spirit. You see, all of our sanctification, all of our righteousness, and by the way, let me just say this, sanctification is the outward form of righteousness. It's the outward presentation of righteousness. Somebody asked me the other day, do you believe in sanctification? Oh, yes. Yes, I believe in sanctification. But I don't believe in sanctification the way a lot of the old Pentecostals, the old holiness people taught it. I believe that sanctification comes as a work of the Holy Spirit. You know, I am more sanctified today than I was yesterday, than I was a year ago. Why? Because the Holy Spirit is working in my life. Why is he working in my life? Because I'm dependent upon him. I'm trusting in him. That's the next thing that the Apostle Paul says. By faith. By faith. What does it mean by faith? That I have all my confessions lined up? Not necessarily, even though I believe that confession is a very important part of faith. By faith. It means to trust. It means to rely upon. You ever get a little anxious about your spiritual development? You ever see someone else and they seem so much more loving and kind and so much more spiritual than you are, and you're thinking, man, what is wrong with me? First of all, you need to stop comparing yourself to someone else. But what you need to do and what I need to do is we need to say to the Lord, I believe. I'm trusting in you to bring me to the point where I'm walking in sanctification and in holiness, in righteousness. So the Apostle Paul says, for we through the Spirit, by faith. And then he says this wonderful statement. We are waiting for the hope of righteousness. Now, Waiting doesn't mean to sit in inactivity. You know, when you go to a restaurant and you have a waiter, now a lot of times nowadays they call them servers. But when you have a waiter, what are they doing? They are watching you. If they're a good waiter or a waitress, what are they doing? They're watching you. That coffee cup gets to the bottom, and what do? They say, oh, they need more coffee. Or, oh, they need some water. Or, what would you like to eat? What would you like to drink? Can I help you? Would you like some of this delicious dessert? You ever been to a restaurant and they bring out a tray of desserts and set it in front of you? Wouldn't you like? When I was in Bible college, I worked in the coffee house part of a restaurant. And this restaurant was an Italian restaurant, but at the end of the meal, the waiter or the waitress would go out and they'd have a tray and it would be full of all of these delicate, delicious, way too sweet things, and they would put that in front of the people and they'd say, now, wouldn't you like to have a piece of this blueberry cheesecake, fresh blueberries on it? Oh, look how creamy. What are they doing? They're trying to present something to you. They're trying to show you something. And the Apostle Paul says waiting, and actually means to wait with expectancy. To wait. Waiting for the hope. Now, what is a hope? Something that is expected. It's not something that's here now. But it's the hope. It's something that I am expecting to have happen. What is the Apostle Paul expecting to have happen? He tells us righteousness. Let's go back and review. It's through the Spirit. It's not through the work of the flesh. It's through the Spirit. It's by faith. It's trusting and believing God. Trusting and relying upon what He said. And then it's waiting. Looking expectancy. Looking with expectancy. Expecting. Oh. And what are you expecting? Well, in this case, you're not expecting Jesus to come. Now, that's an expectancy we all should have. But in this case, it's an expectancy of righteousness. That righteousness is coming to you. And it's coming by faith. It's coming because you believe it. It is coming to you, and it's coming to me. We are not as righteous or as sanctified as we're going to be. But we are not as sanctified as what we used to be. Do you understand? I hope that you do. God bless you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you again tomorrow.